Welcome to Football Discussion Daily. My name is Joe, and I'm here with the co-host CGO, or George. We are releasing this on April the 29th, 2026. And just a quick reminder, please like us, subscribe us. We release long-form YouTube every day, short-form Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms. Today, there's an incredible game, bunch of goals, and a big game that's going to help decide the season. Of course, talking about Ipswich 2, Southampton 2. No, I'm just kidding. We are talking about Bayern Munich 4, PSG 5. This was an end-to-end game where there was an early penalty from Kane, but the goals did not stop coming. I think there was 22 minutes at the end of the game without goals. That was the longest period in the entire game without goals. 9 goals sets a record for highest amount of goals in a single knockout game in Champions League history, or semifinals at least. I don't know about all of knockout, but still very impressive. What impressed me about this game was, I don't know if it was bad defense as much as it was good offense, and tactically both coaches were going for it. There's a lot of times where Bayern sent 7 or 8 guys up, and PSG countered, and it was 2-on-2, and they scored. And PSG has a lot of very talented players offensively, so does Bayern, and so they're able to finish those chances. It did feel like at points a FIFA game. There were so many awesome goals in this game. One of the best games I've seen. George, is this the best knockout game you've seen?
Even the man called Luis Enrique, the coach of PSG, said this is the best game in his coaching career. So this is the best game he has witnessed in his coaching career. So that says it all, that this game was a very interesting game, very entertaining. In short, it was a game that from start to finish, it was enjoyable. There was no dull moment, free-flowing football. Both sides were very involved in the game. Both sides were, there's lots of aggression, trying to press high from both sides. And if you look at what we said, we talked about the front lines of both sides. You see that the front lines for both sides, they did very well. You look at Desiree Doué was a big threat to the Bayern defense. Ousmane Dembele performed fantastically in this game. He scored 2 goals. Same thing with Kvaratskhelia, scored 2 goals as well. And those goals were brilliant goals. And then you come to Bayern side, you have Harry Kane, who was very much involved. You saw that great pass he gave to Luis Diaz. That was that was a beautiful pass. That's one thing I tell you about Harry Kane. Harry Kane is not all about scoring alone, but when it comes to creativity, he's a very intelligent striker.
He did it from midfield too. It's not like he was like 20 yards out passing it to Diaz, who's 10 yards out. No, he was in midfield. He lost over the entire defense. And Diaz still has work to do, right? He is a defender and the goalie. And Diaz is like, boom, boom. He's patient. And then it's a fantastic goal all around. You can't even say it's bad. Some of these goals, maybe you can be like super critical and be like, the defender should have done this. But the vast majority of these goals are good, like, are not bad defending either. Like, they're aggressive tactically for the teams. But, this was just a great pass and finish from
But if you look at some of those goals, sometimes you can't even blame the defender. Like if you look at the goal Olise scored, that was a beautiful goal, because if a defender tries to maybe tackle him in that position where he is, that could result into a penalty or something like that. But the guy was very smart, scored a beautiful goal. So all the players who were looking forward to perform in this game, all of them, they performed very well. You notice that Michael Olise was a big threat to Nuno Mendes. Nuno Mendes, we all know, is being seen as the best left back in the world. But we saw what Olise did to him today. In fact, at some point, he had to leave the pitch because he was so overwhelmed with the much work he had to do today in this game.
Olise does that to a lot of players. I mean, he's just that good. I remember, and even at Crystal Palace, he's just absolutely fantastic, and he just reached the next level at Bayern because he had so much more space. There was one goal where Kvara, I'm going to call him Kvara. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his full name, but he got the ball on like the edge of the box, and he created just a little bit of space, and he beats Nauer to the near post. I personally believe that if a goalie gets beat to the near post, it's the goalie's fault. The goalies should not get beat to the near post. Almost never. It's almost always, the goalie's fault. I've seen instances this season where Neuer didn't make saves I felt he would have made 4, 5, 6 years ago. I think it's still being nitpicky because Kvara did a great job with that finish, and I feel like it was just a very powerful, smart finish. But maybe you can nitpick Neuer on that one and say he could have gotten that one. I feel like maybe Neuer gets that a couple of years ago, but who really knows? It's just end to end stuff.
Honestly, all the players they really lived up to expectation. I won't tell you, especially the front line, the midfielders. Vitia was in the game. João Neves, we saw he was able to, he got a goal in this game from a corner from Dembele. He nodded it in. Most of these players, I was so impressed with them. The game was so exciting that I really enjoyed it so much. So if we say that we have a semi-final games where history was made, where we have 9 goals scored for the first time, it's something that is very, very impressive because football is all about scoring goals. And apart from that, credit must go to Harry Kane, Luis Diaz, and Michael Olise. The three of them, this trio, have scored 100 goals in total for Bayern Munich. You only see that with teams like Barcelona and Real Madrid in the past. But now we've seen a trio that have really done something very impressive, which tells you why we talked about it yesterday, that these three guys, they are one of the most dangerous front line we have
Added,
in world
added,
football today.
added Musiala as well, and of course, I mean, PSG is no slouches either with Due, Dembele, and Kvara exceptional. I mean, France this summer they lost Ekitike, but they still have Mbappe, Dembele, and Due or any number of people they can throw in there. It's just an embarrassment of riches for them. I think Griezmann still might play for France this summer, but internationally, one of the best you'll see for sure this summer with France, and a lot of them get their start at PSG or have some sort of tie to PSG, so which is exciting as well. George, really quickly, let's run through a couple of the big moments of the game. There's a penalty early on a handball for, I think it was Bayern. The Bayern one was the handball, right? They called it handball. There was some controversy because the rules have changed for handball so much over the years, and there's points in the past where this might not have been a handball. What are your thoughts on that?
If you see, sometimes these referees get us so confused. We see a lot of inconsistency because if you notice, before Ousmane Dembele was trying to make that cross, Davies' hands was behind him, and then somehow I don't know how the hands moved and the ball touched his hand. If I were to be the referee, I don't know if I'll give that as a penalty. But these guys, we see them as people that should know the rules of the game more than ourselves. So, but for me, I don't think a penalty would have been awarded for such thing because it was not something that was done deliberately. So I don't know. People might have their own different thought. That's why they said it's a controversial penalty. So I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, I think he did make his body bigger with the ball. He did block a ball that was going towards the net with his hand. I think the difference between deliberate and not deliberate is giving a yellow or a red, depending on how close you are to the goal. If it's deliberate on the goal line, that should be a red. If it's deliberate and it's not really directly preventing a goal, that's a yellow. I mean, I think that this is I think it's a fake controversy. I don't think we should incentivize defenders to make their body bigger in the box. I think if your hand is outside your body, you're putting yourself at risk anywhere on the field for a handball as a defender. And I feel like it was a mistake by the Bayern defender in this particular scenario. That's personal thought.
But Joe, did you also consider the distance? Because sometimes when the distance between the players are very close, most times we see the referee overruling, giving a penalty or something like that. So in this case, the distance wasn't that far. They were very far apart. They were a bit close. So that's part of the reason why some people feel no, a penalty shouldn't have been awarded for that. I don't know
But
what you think.
he moved his hand from the back to here, and it did block a shot. I don't think it was deliberate. I don't think the penalty is terribly controversial. And being honest, I think that a 1 goal lead heading back to Munich. I mean, I think that's advantage Munich. One thing that I thought during this game, George, and would love to know your thoughts is this games like this wouldn't happen under the away goals rule. Bayern would not, even if they have the talent and the skill set and the mentality they have today, they just wouldn't be incentivized to do this just because, it's just a lot easier. Or sorry, PSG wouldn't be as open as they were. I say Bayern, because they'd be more concerned with giving up too many goals to this Bayern team at home, and it'd be a much more cagey match. In my opinion, I remember some of these old knockout legs with the away goals rule. It was pretty cool just to see games like swing on one goal. So it was like, oh, Bayern are going through, and then 1 goal scored, and then PSG is going through, rather than it having to be tied first. But I do think that games like today would not happen under the away goals rule. And there's several games over the last couple of years where I felt like there's extra aggression from the home side because they're not as worried about conceding goals, which is exciting, George. So that rule has been gone for I think 3 or 4 years, George.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you feel like in general the away goals rule was good to get rid of?
For me, most times uh, when rules are made, sometimes it favors you, sometimes it doesn't favor you. If you want to ask me, I think this new system is much better because it's a bit fair to everyone so that at the end of the day, we see out what happens. Because imagine a team plays a 2-2 draw at home and then it went away and play. Most times you see that the other team playing at home now in the return leg, a bit relaxed because they know if we are able to play a goalless draw, a 1-1 draw will be true. So it creates some kind of complacency. But with the new rule, everybody has to be on top of their game. So it makes the game more interesting. So that's why I love this new rule because if Bayern goes to Munich and they're leading by a goal to nil, they know they are not through yet. So they have to push more. So that will make the game more interesting. So I think I prefer this particular rule than that away goes rule. That's my own opinion.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it is interesting just to see what everybody's thoughts are. I remember knockout tie. I think it was Liverpool Arsenal in 07-08. There's a knockout tie where I think it was oh gosh, I should have prepped this. I think that it was 2-2 away, and then at home at Emirates, and then at home at Anfield, Liverpool won 4-2. But because of the nature of the game, um, there was several times where Arsenal scored, and then Arsenal were going through with 30 minutes left, and Liverpool scored. Liverpool were going through with 20 minutes left. It happened several times throughout the end of the game, which I thought was really just a really interesting game dynamic there. I remember the Chelsea versus Barcelona game that ended 0-0 in Barcelona and 1-1 in Stamford Bridge. And again, there was a 90th minute goal by Andres Iniesta that swung the tie completely in Barcelona's favor and made it from going out to going in without that in-between step of being tied, which again, we lose those moments. But again, 2 goals were scored over 180 minutes and 9 goals were just scored over 90 minutes. So I'll look into those those stats on aggregate.
I don't know if you also remember the game between Chelsea and Barcelona, where the first leg, I think that was, is it? I think I can't. I'm trying to remember the year now.
It was 2012.
Chelsea, I
There
think
was the
2012.
Fernando
Yes,
Torres
yes.
goal.
So Chelsea won 1. I remember it was Didier Robert that scored the goal at Stamford Bridge. And when they went to the Nou Camp, Barcelona were leading 2-0, and then Ramirez was able to score one. Barcelona knew with what they score, with the way the score was, that 2-1 means they are out based on the way it goes rule. So they were pushing for a third goal so that they can qualify. Before you know it, all of them went forward and left the back line. And then we had the Torres who had a great pass from Ashley Cole, and there was nobody to stop him. He had to dribble the goalkeeper and score the goal. So you see, most times this issue of away goes rule, it can really cause a lot of tension, and most times we've seen teams that didn't really favor that much. So for me, I'm happy with this new rule, and I think that will make the game more interesting. But one question I want to ask you is, don't you think a return leg in Munich, there's that possibility that this game might get into extra time? Because I foresee a situation where Bayern might win by a 1-goal margin, and then we'll get into extra time and possibly a penalty shootout.
Possibly. I mean, I think that in these high scoring games, there's a lot more variance than there is in a low scoring game. And so we'll see. I also think that both of these teams were comfortable being hyper aggressive because there's so much time left in the tie to turn it around. I didn't see too much about Luis Enrique or Vincent Company talking about their mentality, but I imagine they're both thinking in the 60th minute, let's continue to push. There's basically 2 hours of soccer left to turn anything around if we were to, and they're both very confident in their sides to score. But if that turns into we're tied and there's 20 minutes left, they might start being more conservative. And it might be really interesting to see how, if the other team doesn't become conservative, how that dynamic changes, if the quality of chances changes for each team. I think it'll be really interesting to watch. George, I do want to counter with a question back to you.
Okay.
I have said I've seen Bayern play maybe 5 or 6 times this year, and I've been under the impression that Manuel Neuer is not the Manuel Neuer that we've seen. I watched them last year. I didn't have that impression. What do you think about that assessment?
Well,
the guy just turned 40.
Well, he just turned 40, but the issue is that the performance has dropped, not as it was in the past. But when you look at the level, the way he still performs, he is still better off than so many elite goalkeepers. So that's why you see him, he still maintains that number one position. Because we also have other reserve goalkeepers in the Bayern team. But if you do your comparison between Manuel Neuer and those goalkeepers, you see that he is still a better goalkeeper than those guys in terms of experience and in terms of performance. So, but one thing the reason why many of us feel his performance has dropped is based on the way we rate him before now. So that's why we feel he's no more at that top level anymore. But at this level, he's still better off than so many elite goalkeepers. That's what I feel.
Manuel Neuer has dropped from one of the best goalkeepers ever level to like just another great goalkeeper. You know, like Messi has dropped from better than anybody ever soccer ever to best player in the world to probably still exceptionally great player. Like Messi is still better. I think there's less than. I'd still take Messi for 90 minutes. I don't want to make this about Messi, but I'd still take him for 90 minutes over anybody. You know, he's 39 or 38, and I wouldn't maybe for 60 games in Europe. You know, there might be some younger players, but I still think for 90 minutes, Messi is the best in the world. So
the way the likes of Messi are performing now, the likes of Ronaldo are performing now, there are some elite players who are dreaming to play just the way they play currently, even though those guys have dropped in terms of their performance because they've gone past their peak. So that's the way it is.
George, it is a little different from goalies because like reaction time is a big thing. But like in my personal experience, to be in my late 30s and just like watching these guys, I don't think it's necessarily about absolute performances worse. Like if you look at a Luka Modric, for 20 minutes, he's as good as he ever was. Like it's the amount of time he can sustain it and the recovery time that changes. But like when he's healthy, like he's as good as he ever was. He can go into tackles. He can control a game. Like Madrid, I think him leaving is one of the biggest reasons Madrid has failed the last, year. And last year they looked like a completely different team with him on and off the field. They have so many talented midfielders that really need one guy coordinating and quarterbacking, to use an American term, and they don't really have that right now.
But don't you think that a player like Modric, in terms of energy, it has dropped compared to when he was much younger? The skills, the ability to be creative and all those things are still there, but
Like I
energy
said,
wise,
I feel like for 20, 30, 40 minutes, he can still be as good as he was as a 35, 30-year-old. I think that the ability, as you age, typically, this completely dependent on individual and position. I think as you age, it's typically the amount of time you can sustain that, and the quickness and your body's ability to turn that around and play again 3 days later at the same level. I mean, and that's why a lot of these older players, you don't see them playing 90 minutes very often.
I have a quick question for you. As at 58 minutes of the PSG Bayern Munich game, it was 5-2. What was going through your mind? Were you thinking it was over for Bayern when it was 5-2, or you felt Bayern can still do something?
I mean, I saw Bayern come back from 3-0 and win 5-3, 4-3 on the weekend. I knew that Bayern was definitely capable of scoring. I think it would definitely have been a different mentality going back to the Allianz Arena down 5-2 versus 5-4. So credit to Bayern for coming back, and I don't think Vincent Kompany was terribly worried about it. And from what I saw, I don't think his strategy really changed. He was to FIFA. He was like FIFA all out attack the entire second half. Like leave two guys back and just let your offensive guys do his thing. So
If the game had ended 5-2, do you think Bayern would have stand a chance of doing a comeback, or it would have been over?
yes, I feel like the home field advantage is massive, and I think 5-4 is a pretty massive advantage to Bayern because they're at home. So we'll see.
No, if it had ended 5-2 is what I'm asking you. Do you think they would have?
Yes, I think they're certainly capable of coming back at 5. Obviously, they came back from 5-2 to 5-4, so of course they're capable. George, what kind of question is that? Come on. All right, George. Let me close out with our typical questions. Number 1, did you think the game was over at 5-2? Number 2, is Manuel Neuer, is he falling off in level? Do you agree with George and I? Number 3, is this the best Champions League semifinal you've ever seen? Because George, I think it is. I think George kind of thinks. What do you think about the away goals rule? Again, definitely changed the dynamics today in terms of strategy. And number 5, a lot of questions today. What is your prediction for next week? George, real quick, what is your prediction for next week?
Next week,
Bayern versus PSG.
I still have the feeling that Bayern would still go through, but anything is possible. PSG still also has the capability, but I'm tipping Bayern Munich.
I predict that I'm going to take 2 hours off work to go watch this. It's worth my PTO. But I predict that I also predict Bayern's going to go through. I think it'll be like 5-2 Bayern. I think it'll be a crazy scoring game. I thank you for listening. Have a good night or day.